Hello friends. So for this one, I just have tennis balls. I mean, I have yoga therapy tune-up balls, but tennis balls are just fine. They're cheap, they're easy, accessible. You can find them in probably 8 different stores, not too far from where you live, right? So this one is for that low back. So we were talking about low back love. So you're gonna bring those 2 balls, lay down on your back, and just have them on the side for a second. Turn your palms up, right? Walk your feet wide and lean your knees in. And so just pause and just take about 3 to 4 breaths here and just notice your body. So I'm saying it's low back love, but really we're going to go a little more into the pelvis, but I think the two are entirely related. When we start to get really tight in our hip joints and around our pelvis, we tend to overuse the spine, and the low back takes the brunt of that. So we're going to try and see if loosening up our hips a little bit helps our low back. So now walk those feet in just a little bit, hip distance-ish. Go ahead and pick the hips up, and you're going to bring those balls under on the back side of the hip socket. And if you're not sure, just kind of move them around, and then just simply bring the hips down onto that. If this feels like too much pressure, you could do this standing with bent knees against a wall. You'll get a little less pressure that way, right? You could put a blanket over the balls so it's not quite so much pressure. But if it's okay to just soften into them and just think about your body just almost enveloping them, right? Softening around them. And that might feel like plenty for you. You might not need any more pressure. Maybe the feet walk a little wide. You can tee the arms out or wherever they're comfortable. And then just start to move a little bit towards windshield wiper. Now don't go too big with it. Don't go full board windshield wiper. Just really gently start to sway your hips a little bit, not your hips, sorry, your knees, just a little bit right to left. The beginning, right, of a windshield wiper twist. That might be plenty. What I'm noticing is that my right hip is just like, yowza, right? It's not too much for it. I can go a little further, but it's like way tighter than my left hip. Again, I like to get information when I do these kinds of things in exploration. Maybe you go just a little further with it. And for me, I find that, you know me, I'm a progressive mover. I start small and I feel like I end up getting to those bigger places than if I just try to go to the big place right off of the bat, right? I don't think we're aware of how much our nervous systems have control of our body. And if they feel unsafe, or like we're moving too fast, or we're stretching something too hard, too far, the brain will put inhibitor cells called Golgi cells into those muscles, right? And prevent the muscles from stretching, from moving, from whatever it is we're asking it to do, which is kind of not counterintuitive, but right? And if we just move slow and work with the nervous system feels safe the whole time, then we're all on the same team, so to speak. And then after doing that for a bit, you might find you want to move the balls. Maybe you move them a little up or in or out. You know, as with so many things in general, but especially with, I think when working with the balls, I think that's can be a really individual thing, right? You just kind of move them and find another place. This part's not quite as intense because it's not on all of those external hip rotators and stuff, but I still feel like I'm getting some benefit in the area. And, you know, same thing, you can do that. You can stay in one position and hold pressure. You can continue to move. And at some point in time, if it feels like you want to move the balls again, and I don't know that that's the right way or the only way to do it, but I do kind of match where the balls are on each side and make it symmetrical for the most part, so that I can kind of also pay attention like what the right side's like in contrast to the left. And another one that you can do is you can let your hips, you kind of shorten your right side waist, or I could say right hip moves up to the shoulder, left hip moves down to the thing. I'm showing with my hands what I'm trying to get my hips to do. And that's one way to kind of roll them out a little bit and play, right? You can move in circles. I don't know, like there's probably a whole bunch of things I don't know to tell you that you're like, if you explore and play, you're like, oh yeah. So just move on them. And then why don't we do one, maybe two more positions. And again, just play with them and find out what is it that feels like it's helping you open that area. Less pressure, more pressure. I'm going to stay on one side. And then go ahead and lift your hips when you're ready. You can keep doing this. You're at home. If you're like, oh my gosh, I'm loving this, and you want to do it for another 12 minutes and move all the way up the spine, awesome. But I just was going to give us a quick little number down by the hip joints, right? The sacrum area. Let's come back to constructive rest pose and end that way. Feet wide, knees lean in. Notice any sensation you have around the back side of the sacrum and the pelvis, the hips, that general region. Did that have any effect on your low back? You may or may not be able to tell. In stillness. You can roll through the fetal position. I'm going to bring my knees in and give my knees a little hug and just lengthen my low back. And then I'm going to do teeter-totter to come up. And I'm not going to stay here for long because my hip does not love this pose, but for just a moment, sitting up tall. Namaste.